When I was born, I slept 2 hours every 12-hour period. I didn't cry, I only screamed all the time. I was the middle child with an older sister and a younger brother. My older sister, Lynette, was the responsible one. My younger brother, Richard, was the goof-off. I had a high IQ, but many learning disabilities. In school, these learning disabilities were troublesome. I was also bullied by everyone, the teachers, the students, and their parents. After I got home from school, I would beat my sister and brother up out of anger of the bullying in school. After that, I was fine and I went about my day. My family wasn't a Christian family, and we only went to a local Lutheran church on Christmas and Easter. I never thought much about God. I didn't even know God as a child. As I grew up, things only got worse. My parents got divorced, and I blamed my mother for my father leaving. I would only learn the truth later about my father. Because I had failed twice in school, I was taller than the other students, and this made me stick out. High school and middle school were terrible times for me. I was the weird girl. I didn't like the things other girls liked. I wasn't interested in boys, and I liked skateboarding and riding bikes. After my father left, I started cutting myself because I got positive attention anytime I was hurt. I was hurting a lot inside. My father got saved and became a Christian. During our visits, he would take us to church. I hated going to church because it was too slow and boring, and I didn't pay attention to what the pastor said. I couldn't sit still for long, and I just found everything boring about the church. In middle school, I got a camera. I loved it. I would photograph everything around me. I started using the camera to reveal what was hurting inside, and I was hurting a lot. I graduated from high school and went on to college. In college, I was diagnosed with Bipolar and Aspergers syndrome. This gave me an answer to why I was so weird, but it wasn't comforting. During college, I lived with my sister and brother-in-law. They were Christians and a member of a local church. One day, I met a family from this church. I loved playing Legos with Michael, who was 5, and Justin, who was 3. Michael would ask me a lot of questions, like if I was a Christian, why I didn't go to church, and things like that. He asked and asked. I decided to go to church. I just went to get him to stop asking me the questions. But I didn't pay attention and I found it boring. I graduated college, and after college I ended up in the hospital for psychiatric problems 3 times. I started blaming God for my problems. Why did God make me this way? Then one day at church, the pastor spoke on John 9:1-3. As he went along, he saw a blind man from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who has sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" "Neither this man nor his parents sinned," said Jesus. "But this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him." This verse made a difference in me. I realized God made me perfect, and I wasn't damaged the way the world saw me. After the first hospitalizations, I got saved and baptized. Our church just purchased a new baptismal pool, and I had to get baptized in front of the whole church. I didn't like being in front of people, but I did it anyway. I decided to go to graduate school because nothing seemed to be fitting in my life other than the church. I got accepted into a private art school, and unfortunately I was hospitalized 3 times during the 2 years I was there. I did graduate on time, and I received an MFA in photography and digital imaging in 2005. I thought I would be on easy street, living a high life of a wealthy artist, but God had different plans for me. In 2008, I went to Camp Echoing Hills with our church's youth group to document them caring for the campers, who were made up of disabled adults and children. I saw the blessings that were in my life because I had a nice home and a nice family. Most of the campers lived in special homes. At the end of the camp, I made them photo albums. I saw this small gift make such a big impression on them and realized that I was using my talents to serve God. In 2010, I went to the Ukraine for the first time on a missions trip. Again, I saw the blessings that I had in my life. A lot of the children didn't have many clothes or even toothpaste. They didn't have a parent to put them to bed. I used my photography again to bring joy in their life. I took photos of them and gave them albums. They loved these photo albums. In November 2013, Pastor Oleg invited me to come to Ukraine and serve with him. I went to orphanages and elderly homes. He encouraged me to speak with the elderly women and men. I didn't know what to talk to them about. I lived in America. I lived pretty comfortably. The women in these homes suffered a lot, didn't have much, but with God's encouragement, I chose to share my story. They enjoyed me talking to them, enjoyed looking at photos of my family. And then Pastor Oleg asked me to speak to his church. With God's encouragement, I spoke to his church about being a believer and suffering a mental illness. His church was overwhelmed by my testimony, and I was overwhelmed by their response. I shared with his church my story. I shared how God was there during the darkest parts of my mental illness. I also shared how God uses serving to help heal your emotional pains. I love serving God, and I love sharing God's love. Everything is possible with God. God lifts up the weakest to do great things for his kingdom. It isn't a sin to hurt. Even during the darkest times of your life, God is with you. Even as I was in the hospital, alone and scared, God was with me. God is not a dead-end street, and his plan is everlasting life in his kingdom.